Kea stepped into the mine shaft, a knife already in her hand. "Mountain man," she whispered, cutting Jacob's ropes. "I told you I should have come to town. Now I must save you. How did you find us?" "Apache track better than white men hide. You left trail like wounded buffalo." She freed Ethan too. The three of them moved toward the back entrance of the mine. Kaya paused at the door, looking back at Billy. The young guard was still unconscious where they had left him, hands now tied with his own belt. "What about him?" "He lives," Jacob said quietly. "He is just a boy following orders. When he wakes, he will have a story to tell Blackwood, but he will be breathing. That is more than Crow would have given us." As they slipped out the back entrance, they heard voices approaching. Luther Crow and his men, returning early. "Billy, we are coming early. Colonel wants them dead tonight. Burn the evidence." Jacob grabbed Kaya and Ethan. "Run, we head to your land. We make our stand there." "You can barely walk," Kaya protested. "I have walked on broken ribs before," Jacob growled. "Move!" They rode hard through the darkness. Behind them, they could hear the hired guns mounting up, shouting, giving chase. The hunt was on. And Jacob McAllister, despite his broken body, despite his age, despite everything stacked against him, felt something he had not felt in years: purpose. The fight was not over. In fact, it had just begun. They rode through the night like ghosts fleeing judgment. Jacob's ribs screamed with every bounce of the saddle, but he did not slow. Could not slow. Behind them, the sound of pursuit echoed off canyon walls. Luther Crow and his men, maybe 6 of them, hunting through darkness with torches that bobbed like angry fireflies. Kaya led the way. She knew this land in a way white men never could, knew every deer trail and hidden wash, every place where rock gave way to sand and horses could move silent. She had tracked Jacob through 12 miles of wilderness to find that mine. Now she was leading them home. Ethan rode between them, young face set with determination. The fear burned out of him somewhere back in that mine shaft. The boy had crossed a line tonight, had killed a man, had tasted what it meant to stand in the space between life and death and choose. They reached Kaya's land just before dawn, when the sky was that particular shade of gray that makes the world look like a charcoal drawing. Jacob slid from his horse and nearly collapsed. Only Kaya's quick hands kept him upright. "I am fine," he lied through gritted teeth. "You are not fine," Kaya said. "You have broken ribs, maybe worse." "Broken ribs can wait. We need to prepare. They are coming." But Kaya shook her head. "Not here. We go to Grandfather Naichi, Hidden Canyon, 5 miles east. They will not find us there, and he can heal you." Jacob wanted to argue, but his body betrayed him. His vision swam. The beating had been worse than he thought. "All right," he conceded. "We go to your grandfather." They rode those final 5 miles as the sun broke over the Mogollon Rim, painting the Arizona sky in shades of copper and gold. The hidden canyon revealed itself slowly, a crack in the earth that you would ride past a dozen times without noticing. But Kaya knew the way. Inside, the canyon opened into a small valley. 6 Wickiups stood in a clearing beside a stream. 15 Apache people, elders and women and children, living quietly away from the reservation, away from the army patrols, away from men like Colonel Blackwood. An old man emerged from the largest Wickiup, Nietzsche, 64 years old, face like weathered cliffstone, eyes that still held the sharpness of youth. He wore traditional Apache clothing and carried himself with the dignity of a medicine man who had seen 70 winters and understood the language of spirits. He spoke in Apache, and Kaya translated for Ethan. Grandfather asked why wounded white man comes to Apache sanctuary. Kaya responded in Apache, then English for Jacob's benefit. "He is friend. He fights for my land, for our sacred places." Nietzsche studied Jacob for a long moment. Then he surprised everyone by speaking English. "I speak English. Learned from missionaries before I realized they wanted to kill Apache spirit, not save it. You are mountain in man, ghost walker. I have heard of you." Jacob straightened despite the pain. "Did not know Apache knew my name." "Ute speak of you. Crow speak of you. They say white man who lives like us, respects our ways. We listen to Ute and Crow. They do not lie." "I try to walk a good path," Jacob said simply. Nietzsche gestured toward his Wickiup. "Come, You are hurt. I will heal. Inside the wickiup, Nietzsche performed the healing ceremony with the precision of a man who had done this 1,000 times. He burned white sage in an abalone shell, waving the cleansing smoke over Jacob's body. The scent was sharp and clean, cutting through the fog of pain. He mixed asha root with water, creating a paste that he spread across Jacob's bruised ribs. The plant was powerful medicine, anti-inflammatory and healing. Then he wrapped the ribs tightly with strips of buckskin, binding them so Jacob could breathe without the bones grinding. While he worked, Nietzsche sang, low rhythmic songs in Apache, ancient healing words that had been passed down through generations. Jacob sat still, accepting the ceremony with respect. He had seen Crow medicine men work, had witnessed Ute healing rituals. He knew these practices held power that white doctors did not understand. When it was finished, Nietzsche sat back. You honor our ways by accepting them, he said. Most white men refuse, say it is savage medicine. But this medicine kept Apache alive 1,000 years before white doctors came with their knives and bleeding bowls. I have seen enough to know wisdom comes in many forms, Jacob replied. Thank you, grandfather. Ethan, who had been watching the entire ceremony with wide eyes, asked, Does it really work? Nietzsche smiled. White man's medicine treats body. Apache medicine treats body and spirit together. Both must heal. You cannot heal one without the other. Kaya added, My great-grandmother lived to 94 winters. Never saw white doctor. Only medicine like this. That afternoon, Nietzsche called a war council. They gathered in the center of the small village. Nietzsche, Kaya, Jacob, Ethan, and 2 Apache warriors who had just arrived from the San Carlos reservation, having slipped away under cover of darkness. Ishton was 32 years old. A scar ran across his chest from a cavalry saber wound 3 years back. His eyes were fierce, constantly moving, assessing threats. He wore traditional Apache warrior clothing and carried a lance and bow. Cochetta was 29. Quieter than his cousin, but no less deadly. He moved with the fluid grace of a man who had spent his entire life hunting and fighting. He carried a Winchester rifle stolen from a cavalry supply wagon, along with traditional weapons. Both men regarded Jacob with deep suspicion. Why should we trust mountain men? Ishton demanded, speaking in Apache. Kaya translated. He is white, whites lie. He saved my life, Kaya said. Took a beating for him, gave his word. Cochetta crossed his arms. Words are wind. What proof does he offer? Jacob stood, moving carefully because of his ribs. He spoke in broken Apache, then switched to English. No proof but my word. But I lived with Crow 7 winters, with Shoshone 5 winters, with Ute 3 winters. Ask them about Grizzly Bear. They will vouch for me. Nietzsche raised his hand. I already sent message to Ute through Trading Network. They say this man honors treaties, shares food in lean times, fought beside us against Comanche raiders in '59. If they say this, I believe. Ishton studied Jacob for another long moment, then nodded grudgingly. If grandfather trusts, I trust. But I watch you, mountainman. Fair enough, Jacob said. They spent the next hour planning strategy. Jacob drew a map in the dirt with a stick, marking Kaya's land, the approaches, the high ground, the water sources. Blackwood will come for us, Jacob said. He cannot let us live. We know too much, and we humiliated him. Men like Blackwood do not forgive humiliation. How many men does he have? Cochetta asked. At least 15, maybe 20. Hired guns and corrupt deputies. Plus he can call on cavalry if he makes the right lies to the right officers. Ishton leaned forward. Then we cannot win direct fight. No, Jacob agreed, but we do not need to win direct fight. We need to capture Blackwood alive. Force him to confess in front of honest witness. Then let the law handle him. The law? Kaya's voice was bitter. The law that killed my husband? The law that steals our children for boarding schools? That law? Jacob met her eyes. Not all white men are corrupt. There is a cavalry officer at Fort Verde, Captain William Shaw. He has a reputation for honesty, for following the actual law, not the twisted version men like Blackwood use. If we can get Shaw here, if we can make Blackwood confess in front of him, we have a chance. And how do we get Captain Shaw here? Nietzsche asked. Jacob turned to Ethan. That is where you come in, boy. Ethan straightened. Me? You have to ride to Fort Verde, 30 miles east. Find Captain Shaw. Tell him everything. Convince him to come here as a witness. Alone? Ethan's voice cracked slightly. Through hostile territory? You have tracked deer, set snares, survived mine captivity. You are ready, and you are the only one they will not recognize. If I go, Blackwood's men will kill me on sight. If Kaya goes, she will be arrested. If Ishton or Cochetta go, cavalry will hunt them. You are the only one who can do this. Kaya stepped forward. I will teach you Apache method to hide from patrols. You travel at night. Sleep by day. Move like shadow. Ethan swallowed his fear. Jacob saw the boy make his decision in that moment, saw him choose courage over safety. I will do it, Uncle Jacob, Ethan said. I will find Captain Shaw. Ethan left that evening at dusk when the light was failing and the world turned blue. Kaya had given him final instructions. Stay off main trails. Travel through brush. If you hear horses, hide immediately. Drink before you are thirsty. Rest before you are tired. The boy rode into the wilderness alone, and Jacob felt a fierce pride mixed with gut-wrenching worry. If anything happened to Ethan, if the boy died because of this fight, Jacob would never forgive himself. But there was no other way. He will make it, Kaya said quietly, standing beside Jacob as they watched Ethan disappear into the gathering darkness. He has your strength and Apache teaching. That is powerful combination. He is still just a boy. No, Kaya said, not anymore. He crossed into manhood in that mine. Now he walks his own path. While Ethan rode toward Fort Verde, the rest of them prepared Kaya's land for war. They spent 2 full days setting traps, building defensive positions, and planting fields of fire. It was a strange alliance. An aging mountain man, an Apache widow, a medicine man, 2 warriors, working together to defend ground that most of the world had already written off as lost. Jacob positioned himself on high rocks overlooking the sacred spring. From there, his hawk and rifle could cover 200 yards in 3 directions. He cleared brush to create clean sight lines, stacked rocks to create a stable shooting rest. Kaya and Ishton took positions in the juniper trees that ring the spring area. They had clean shots with their bows, could fire rapidly without reload time. Apache archers could put 6 arrows in the air before a gunman could reload once. Cochetta positioned himself mounted in a canyon behind the camp. He would serve as mobile reserve, able to flank any attack or pursue fleeing enemies. Nietzsche stayed near the spring itself with what supplies they had. His role was spiritual as much as tactical. The sacred spring was not just land, it was connection to ancestors, to Usin the Creator, to everything that made Apache people who they were. They also set traps. Mountain men deadfalls on 2 approach trails. Heavy logs suspended between trees with rawhide rope triggers. When someone hit the tripwire, the would swing down at chest height with bone-breaking force. Apache pitfalls in 3 locations. 3 feet deep, sharpened stakes at the bottom, covered with brush and dirt. Nearly invisible until you fell through. Warning systems. Tripwires attached to small bells. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to announce approaching enemies. False trails, dragged branches to make obvious paths that led directly to traps. It was a killing ground, prepared by men who understood that survival often meant being smarter rather than stronger. On the evening of the 2nd day and as they finished preparations, Kaya and Jacob sat alone by a small fire away from the others. You love spring flower very much, Kaya said quietly. It was not a question. I did, Jacob replied. 8 years now. The grief has edges worn smooth, but it never really leaves. Some nights I still wake expecting to see her tending the fire. The Utes say the dead walk beside us in dreams. I hope that is true. I loved Goyawe the same way, Kaya said. He was brave warrior, yes. Everyone saw the fierce fighter, but I saw gentle husband. He would sing to children, make toys from wood, hold my hand when we walked. How did you survive losing him? Apache way. We grieve, but we do not stop living. The dead want us to live fully, to honor their memory by being strong. I cry at night when alone. But in the day, I am warrior. For him. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire. Then Kaya spoke again. Tomorrow morning, I will teach you our sunrise ceremony, the full ceremony. You have seen it, but tomorrow you will participate as one of us. That is a great honor, Jacob said softly. You have earned it. The next morning before dawn, they stood facing east. Kaya showed Jacob every movement, every word. They sprinkled corn pollen on the ground as offering. They spoke prayers in Apache. They raised their hands to the rising sun, receiving its blessing. Jacob felt something shift inside him during that ceremony, a sense of belonging he had not felt since Springflower died. These people, so different from him in language and culture, had accepted him as brother. Afterward, Kaya said, "You have Apache spirit now, Mountainman. That makes you honorary member of Ndendahe clan." "I will honor that for the rest of my life," Jacob promised. On the third day, Ethan returned. He rode into camp just after noon, and Jacob barely recognized him. The boy was covered in mud and scratches. His clothes were torn. There was dried blood on his shirt. But his eyes were different, harder, older. "Uncle Jacob," Ethan said, sliding from his horse, "I found Captain Shaw. He is coming, but I have to tell you what happened." And Ethan told his story. The first night he had encountered a mountain lion near a creek. The massive cat had stalked him for half a mile before Ethan realized it was there. He remembered Jacob's teaching. Fire scares big cats more than anything. He lit a torch from his fire starter kit, waved it wildly, shouted until his voice cracked. The lion had slunk away into darkness. The second day, his horse stepped in a prairie dog hole and went lame. Not broken, but badly sprained. Ethan could not ride anymore. He remembered Kaya's teaching about travois, the Apache method of making a drag sled. He cut 2 long poles, fashioned a travois, and led his limping horse on foot. 15 miles. It took all day. That afternoon, he had to cross the Verde River. It was swollen from recent rain, 50 feet wide, current fast and dangerous. Ethan remembered Kaya's swimming lesson. Let the current take you diagonal. Do not fight it. Swim at an angle. He stripped off his boots and shirt, led his horse into the water. The current nearly killed him. His horse panicked, nearly dragged him under. But Ethan fought panic, remembered the teaching, let the current carry him diagonal across. He reached the far bank exhausted, vomited water, lay gasping for 10 minutes. "But I made it," Ethan said, a hint of pride in his voice. "I made it to Fort Verde." He found Captain William Shaw in the officers' quarters. Shaw was 45 years old, a career military man with a reputation for honesty that was rare in the territory. He had fought in the Civil War, earned his commission through merit rather than connections, and was known for treating Apache prisoners with basic human decency. Ethan told Shaw everything: the attempted murder, the snake trap, the arson, Blackwood's confession in the saloon, the beating, the mine. Shaw listened without interrupting. When Ethan finished, the captain sat back. "That is a serious accusation against a federal Indian agent," Shaw said carefully. "My uncle is Jacob McAllister," Ethan replied. "Grizzly Bear. He does not lie, and the Apache widow Kaya will testify. And Luther Crow's men might testify too if offered amnesty." "McAllister," Shaw said thoughtfully. "I have heard of him. Old mountain man with a reputation for keeping his word. If he says this is true, then I believe it warrants investigation. Will you come, sir? Will you witness if we can make Blackwood confess?" Shaw considered for a long moment. His career could end if he defied a federal Indian agent without proof. But if what the boy said was true, if Blackwood was murdering people for land, then Shaw's oath as an officer demanded action. "I will come," Shaw finally said, "but I come as observer only. If Blackwood confesses to federal crimes in my presence, then I will intervene, but I cannot arrest an Indian agent without ironclad proof." "That is all we need, sir," Ethan said. "Just be there. Just witness." Now, 3 days after leaving, Ethan was back, and Captain Shaw was coming with 10 soldiers, staying hidden a mile away per Jacob's plan. "You did well, boy," Jacob said, gripping Ethan's shoulder. "Better than well. You did what needed doing, and you survived it. I am proud of you." Ethan's eyes welled up. He had not cried since his parents died, but now the emotion broke through. I was so scared, Uncle Jacob. The whole time I was terrified. Being scared does not make you a coward, Jacob said. Being scared and doing it anyway makes you brave. Remember that. That same afternoon, Kaya rode into Prescott alone. It was dangerous, but necessary. The bait had to be convincing. She wore her mourning clothes, a black dress with her hair loose, the Apache sign of defeat and grief. She looked broken, defeated. Exactly what Blackwood wanted to see. She rode straight to the federal building and walked into Blackwood's office. The colonel looked up from his desk, surprised then pleased. Kaya, he said, standing, I did not expect to see you here. I come to surrender, she said, her voice quiet, her eyes on the floor. I cannot fight anymore. The mountain man is gone. Injured, maybe dead. I am alone. I will sell my land. Blackwood's smile was vulpine. A wise decision, finally seeing reason. $500 in gold, as originally offered. I want $1,000, Kaya said, and you must come to my land to sign the papers. My ancestors must witness. It is Apache way. I cannot sign in white man's building. Blackwood's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why should I come to you? You come here. The sacred spring is on that land, Kaya said. I cannot transfer the blessing without a ceremony there. If you refuse, there is no deal. I will burn the land instead. Destroy the spring, then no one profits. Blackwood calculated. The threat of destroying the spring worried him. If she poisoned the water or collapsed the source, the gold would be inaccessible. Better to play along. Very well, he said. Tomorrow, sunset, I will bring the papers. Come alone, Kaya said. Only you. The spirits will not accept more. Blackwood nodded, but they both knew he was lying. Agreed. As Kaya left the federal building, she did not see Ezekiel Thorne watching from a doorway. As soon as she was gone, Thorne entered Blackwood's office. It is a trap, Thaddeus, Thorne said. That mountain man is with her. I know, Blackwood replied, but we will bring 15 men. That mountain man and Apache squaw cannot stop us all. We will kill them both, take the land, and no one will ever know the truth. And if there are witnesses? Blackwood's smile was cold. Then there will be no witnesses. Dead men do not testify. Sunset of the next day arrived with the kind of light that makes the Arizona desert look like it is on fire. Red rocks glowed. The air turned gold. Shadows stretched long and dark. Jacob was in position on the high rocks, Hawken loaded and ready. His ribs still ached, but Naichi's medicine had helped. He could breathe. He could aim. That was enough. Kaya stood alone in the clearing near the sacred spring, looking small and vulnerable. But Jacob knew better. She had a knife hidden in her boot and a small pistol in the back of her waistband. Apache women were never truly unarmed. Ishton and Cocheta were invisible in the juniper trees. Naichi waited with Ethan near the spring itself, both of them armed. And a mile away, Captain Shaw and his 10 soldiers waited, ready to move at the sound of gunfire. The trap was set. They heard the horses before they saw them. Not one or two, but many. 15 riders emerged from the canyon trail, dust rising behind them. Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood led them. Beside him rode Ezekiel Thorne and Luther Crow. The rest were hired guns and corrupt deputies, men who killed for money and asked no questions. They were all armed, rifles, revolvers. This was not a business meeting. This was an execution squad. Blackwood reined his horse to a stop 50 yards from Kaya. He made no pretense of coming alone. Kaya, he shouted, show yourself. Let us finish this business. Kaya stepped forward, her face calm. You promised to come alone, Colonel. I changed my mind. Where are the papers? First, Kaya said, her voice carrying across the clearing. You tell truth. Why do you want my land so badly? Blackwood laughed. It was an ugly sound. Why, you really want to know? Gold, you ignorant squaw. $50,000 worth of placer gold in that spring. And water rights worth another $30,000 in this drought. This land will make me rich beyond anything your simple mind can imagine. And my husband? Kaya's voice was steady. Did you order Goyawe's death? Blackwood's face twisted with cruel pride. Your husband was an obstacle, a respected warrior who would have organized resistance. I paid Cavalry Lieutenant Mason $1,000 to accidentally shoot him during that forced march skirmish last spring. Made it look like crossfire. Stupid Apaches never suspected a thing. The words hung in the air. A full confession. Murder conspiracy. Fraud. Abuse of federal authority. Captain William Shaw stepped from cover then, 10 soldiers behind him, rifles raised. Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood, Shaw said, his voice ringing with authority. I heard every word. You are under military arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and abuse of federal authority. Blackwood spun in his saddle, face going pale. Shaw, you have no authority over me. Murder of a United States citizen on federal land falls under military jurisdiction. You are finished, Blackwood. For a moment, no one moved. Then Blackwood smiled. You think I did not plan for this, Captain? One of Shaw's own soldiers, a sergeant Jacob did not recognize, suddenly raised his rifle and fired at Shaw. The captain dove aside, the bullet grazing his shoulder. Traitor, Shaw shouted, clutching his wound. The corrupt sergeant tried to flee toward Blackwood's men, but Cochetta's lance caught him mid-stride. The man fell, gasping, Blackwood's gold coins spilling from his pocket. You planted a spy in my ranks, Shaw said, rage in his voice. It will not save you. Then the whole clearing erupted in gunfire. It was chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. Jacob's Hawken roared from the high rocks. 150 yards. Clean shot. A hired gun aiming at Shaw dropped, bullet through his chest. Jacob reloaded. 20 seconds. His hands moved automatically. Second shot. Another man down, hit in the shoulder, disabled but alive. Kaya and Ishton fired arrows from the trees. The shafts whispered through air, finding targets. Kaya hit 2 men, one in the thigh, one in the shoulder. Ishton put an arrow through a man's throat. Lethal, efficient. Cochetta charged from the canyon on horseback, lance lowered like cavalry of old. He scattered 3 hired guns, the lance punching through one man's chest with brutal finality. Ethan, hands shaking but aim true, fired his rifle from near the spring. The bullet caught a hired gun who had been drawing down on Kaya from behind. The man fell. Ethan immediately vomited, overwhelmed by what he had done. His first kill. Naichi stood beside the boy, a hand on his shoulder. You saved a life. That is a warrior's burden. Captain Shaw's soldiers were firing too now, disciplined volleys that drove Blackwood's men to cover. The hired guns had expected easy targets, not a prepared battlefield. In less than 2 minutes, 5 of Blackwood's men were dead. 4 more were wounded. The rest threw down their weapons, hands raised in surrender. But in the chaos, Luther Crow made his move. He grabbed Kaya from behind, arm around her throat, revolver pressed to her temple. Everybody freeze, Crow screamed, or she dies right here. The shooting stopped. Everyone turned. Jacob had a clean shot from the high rocks, but it was risky. One flinch from Crow and Kaya was dead. Crow, Jacob called down. Let her go. You are a soldier, not a murderer. I have got no choice. Blackwood owns my debts. $8,000. I do not deliver. I lose everything. Farm, family reputation, everything. Or you testify against him, Jacob said. Help us. You will get amnesty. I still have connections. Judge Horatio Bass owes me favors. They will hang me anyway. Then Kaya spoke. Her voice was calm despite the gun at her head. Luther Crow, you have wife? Children? Crow hesitated. 2 daughters, 7 and 9 years old. What do you want them to remember? Father who killed woman for money, or father who chose honor? My people say man is the sum of his choices. Right now, you choose who you are forever. Your daughters will live with that choice. Can you? Crow's gun hand trembled. The barrel pressed harder against Kaya's temple. One wrong move and everything ended. The moment stretched impossibly long. Then Crow released her, dropped his gun, stepped back with hands raised. I am done, he said, voice breaking. Blackwood, you can rot in hell. He turned to Captain Shaw. I will testify. I placed the snake, burned the wiki up. Attempted murder. Blackwood paid me $2,000 total. I have got receipts hidden at my place. I will give you everything. The remaining hired guns, seeing their leader surrender, dropped their weapons too. But Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood was not finished. In the moment when Luther Crow surrendered, when his hired guns threw down their weapons, Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood made his choice. He spurred his horse violently and bolted toward the canyon trail. His expensive coat flapped behind him like the wings of a fleeing crow. Ezekiel Thorne hesitated only a second before following, both men riding hard for escape. "After them!" Captain Shaw shouted, but his soldiers were on foot, their horses picketed 100 yards away. Jacob was already moving. Despite his cracked ribs, despite his age, he slid down from the high rocks with practiced speed. Kaya was mounting her horse before Shaw finished speaking. Cocheta wheeled his mount ready to pursue. The three of them, Mountain Man and Apache warriors, thundered after the fleeing men. Blackwood knew the territory. He had spent 2 years as Indian agent, traveling every trail, every canyon. He rode toward Granite Mountain, where old mining camps offered 100 places to hide or make a stand. But Jacob knew wilderness. And Kaya knew this land the way a mother knows her child's face. They gained on the fleeing men. Blackwood's horse was city-bred, used to flat roads and easy travel. Jacob's mountain horse was range-hardened. Kaya's Apache pony could run all day on a handful of grain. The chase led through red rock canyons where the walls rose 300 feet on either side, through forests of ponderosa pine where branches whipped at faces, across a creek where water sprayed and hooves clattered on stone. Jacob could see Blackwood ahead, maybe 200 yards, an easy shot for the Hawken, but he did not fire. They needed Blackwood alive, needed him to face trial to expose the full depth of corruption that had let this happen. The canyon narrowed. The trail began to climb, switchbacking up the side of a mesa. The horses labored, breathing hard, foam flecking their sides. Then suddenly they were on top. The mesa stretched flat for a quarter mile, then ended abruptly. Sheer cliff, 400-foot drop to rocks below. Blackwood and Thorne had nowhere to go. They reined up at the cliff edge, horses dancing nervously, sensing the drop. Turned to face their pursuers. Jacob, Kaya, and Cocheta spread out, blocking the only escape route. They approached slowly, weapons ready. "Thaddeus," Jacob called, "it is over. You are finished." Blackwood's face was twisted with rage and desperation. He drew his revolver, aiming it at Kaya. "Stay back," he screamed. "I will kill her. I swear to God, I will kill her right here." "And then what?" Jacob asked calmly. "You are trapped. Killing her just adds another murder, makes the noose tighter. My family name will be destroyed. Everything I built, gone. I would rather die than face that." Kaya urged her horse forward slightly. "You killed my husband. You tried to steal my land. You deserve death." "Then shoot me," Blackwood shouted. "Go ahead. Prove you are the savage everyone says." But Jacob spoke first. "No, Kaya. We do not get to choose who lives or dies, Omdual does. That is what separates us from men like him." Blackwood laughed bitterly. The law is whatever men with power say it is. I am the law in this territory." "Not anymore," Jacob said. Blackwood aimed his revolver directly at Kaya's heart. His finger tightened on the trigger. Jacob had no choice. He fired. The Hawken roared. The bullet caught Blackwood in the right shoulder, spinning him. Jacob had aimed to disable, not kill. But the impact combined with Blackwood's panicked horse created disaster. The horse reared. Blackwood screamed. He grabbed for the saddle horn, missed. The horse backed toward the cliff edge, still rearing. Blackwood fell. He tumbled from the saddle, hit the ground hard, and started sliding toward the precipice. His hands clawed at rock, at dirt, at anything. His fingers found a crack, gripped desperately. Jacob leaped from his horse, ran toward the cliff edge. He dove, reached out, caught Blackwood's wrist, just as the man started to slide over. For a moment they were connected. Mountain man and corrupt official, enemies joined by a survival instinct. Jacob looked into Blackwood's eyes and saw terror. Pure, absolute terror. The bravado was gone. The cruelty was gone. Just a man facing death. "Hold on," Jacob grunted, trying to pull him up. But Blackwood was heavy, and Jacob's ribs screamed with pain. His grip was slipping. "Jacob," Blackwood gasped. "I am sorry, for everything, for the Ute, for all of it. I am sorry." "Save your apologies for the judge." But Blackwood's weight was too much. The shoulder wound made his arm weak. His hand slipped from Jacob's grip, fingers sliding through fingers. Blackwood fell. 400 feet. His scream echoed off the canyon walls, cut off abruptly when he hit the rocks below. Jacob lay at the cliff edge, breathing hard, staring down at the broken body far below. Kaya dismounted, came to his side. "You tried to save him." "I did," Jacob said quietly. "God help me. I tried." Ezekiel Thorne had watched the entire scene from 50 feet away. Now he slowly raised his hands. "I surrender," Thorne said. "I will testify to everything. The conspiracy, the payments, all of it. Just do not let me fall." Cocheta rode over, grabbed Thorne by the collar, dragged him from his horse. "You are not worth the fall, white man. You will face Apache justice and white man's law both." They returned to the sacred spring as the sun was setting. Captain Shaw had secured all the prisoners. 3 hired guns dead, 4 wounded, the rest in custody, including Luther Crow, who sat apart from the others, head in his hands. Ethan ran to Jacob when he saw him dismount. "Uncle Jacob, we heard the shot. Are you all right?" "I am fine, boy," Jacob said, though he looked exhausted. "Blackwood is dead. Fell from a cliff." "Dead?" Shaw stepped forward. "Did you kill him?" "I shot him in the shoulder to stop him from killing Kaya. He fell during the struggle. I tried to save him. Failed." Shaw studied Jacob's face for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you. And frankly, it saves the territory the cost of a trial." But Jacob felt no satisfaction. He had wanted justice, not death. Wanted Blackwood to face what he had done, to answer for his crimes in a courtroom. Death was too easy. Kaya seemed to sense his thoughts. She spoke quietly beside him. In Apache culture, when a man chooses death over dishonor, there is meaning in that. Blackwood fell. Perhaps the spirits judged him. "Perhaps," Jacob said, but he still felt the weight of that moment, of Blackwood's hand slipping from his. Captain Shaw took statements from everyone that evening. Luther Crow provided detailed testimony about the conspiracy, the attempted murder, the bribes, the systematic harassment. He gave Shaw the location of his hidden receipts, evidence of every payment Blackwood had made. Ezekiel Thorne, desperate to save himself, testified about Golden Peak Mining's role, how they had paid Blackwood $10,000 down payment, how they had known about the illegal methods but turned a blind eye because results were all that mattered. Shaw documented everything meticulously. As a career officer, he understood that cases were won or lost on paperwork. "This is enough to prosecute the mining company," Shaw said, "and enough to clear Kaya of any wrongdoing. But there is still a problem." "What problem?" Jacob asked. "Golden Peak Mining filed an injunction 3 days ago. They claim their contract with Blackwood gives them legal right to the land regardless of his criminal activity. They argue they acted in good faith. The contract, they say, is still valid." Kaya's face went hard. "After everything, I could still lose my land?" "It is a legal argument," Shaw admitted, "and the territorial courts tend to favor business interests over individual claims, especially when the individual is Apache." "When is the hearing?" Jacob asked. 1 week from today, Prescott Territorial Courthouse. Judge Horatio Bass presiding." Jacob nodded slowly. "I know Bass, served with him years ago when I was scouting for the Army. He is honest. If we present the evidence properly, we have a chance." "Then we go to court," Kaya said. "I will not surrender my land to lawyers after refusing to surrender it to killers." The week before the trial, something unexpected happened. The community began to grow. Word spread through the Apache communities about what had happened, about the widow who had stood against a federal Indian agent, about the mountain man who had fought beside her, about the victory at Sacred Spring. 3 more Apache families arrived, asking if they could build wickiups near Kaya's land. They were tired of the reservation, tired of the hunger and disease and broken promises. They wanted to live free, even if it meant living poor. Kaya welcomed them. "This land is for all who will honor it," she said. Jacob and Ethan helped them build. They raised wickiups using Apache methods, cut firewood, helped dig irrigation ditches from the spring to new garden plots. The community was forming, fragile but real. 2 white settler families also came. They had heard about the fight, about the stand against corruption. They were tired of watching powerful men steal from the powerless. They wanted to be part of something different. Martha, a widow with 3 young children, asked Kaya to teach her how to weave baskets. My grandmother knew these skills, Martha said, but they have been forgotten. Will you teach me? Kaya smiled. Knowledge shared is knowledge preserved. I will teach you and you teach your daughters. This way, wisdom survives. In the evenings, the community gathered around communal fires. Apache and White, sitting together, sharing food and stories. Jacob told mountain men tales. Naiche shared Apache oral histories. The children played together, not yet understanding why adults thought their friendship was remarkable. It was a glimpse of what could be, what should be. People of different cultures living together, learning from each other, stronger together than separate. But first, they had to win in court. The day of the trial arrived with the kind of bright Arizona morning that makes everything sharp and clear. No clouds, no mercy. The Prescott Territorial Courthouse was packed. Apache elders sat in the back rows, dignified and silent. White townspeople filled the middle sections, curious and divided. Reporters from the Arizona Republican and the Phoenix Herald sat with notebooks, ready to document what would become territorial precedent. Judge Horatio Bass entered, and everyone stood. Bass was 72 years old, white-haired and imposing. He had served as territorial judge for 20 years, earning respect for being difficult but fair. He looked at the assembled crowd, at Kaya sitting at the defense table, at the 3 expensive lawyers representing Golden Peak Mining on the prosecution side. This is an unusual case, Bass said. Property dispute combined with criminal conspiracy allegations. We will proceed carefully and by the law. Nothing else matters here. Not race, not politics, not public opinion, only law. The mining company's lead attorney stood. Silas Morton was 50 years old, expensive suit from San Francisco, a reputation for winning impossible cases. Your Honor, Morton began smoothly, Golden Peak Mining entered into a legitimate business contract with Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood, who was at the time the duly appointed federal Indian agent for this territory. We paid $10,000 down payment in good faith. The Colonel's subsequent criminal actions, while tragic, do not invalidate a legal contract entered into properly. We are an innocent third party who has suffered financial loss. The land was promised to us legally. We demand the contract be honored. Morton presented the signed contract, bank transfer records, correspondence showing the mining company had followed proper legal procedures. My client followed all territorial and federal guidelines, Morton continued. We cannot be punished for another man's crimes. To void this contract would set dangerous precedent, making any business contract vulnerable to challenge based on one party's later actions. It was a good argument, clean, legal. Exactly the kind of technical reasoning that won cases. Then Jacob stood to testify. He wore his best buckskin clothes, had trimmed his beard slightly, but he still looked like what he was, a man who belonged to wilderness, not courtrooms. Your Honor, Jacob said, his voice carrying the weight of 5 decades of life. My name is Jacob McAllister. I am 57 years old. I have lived in these territories for 25 years. I have trapped beaver, hunted elk, lived with Crow and Shoshone and Ute tribes. I have seen good men and bad men. I know the difference. He placed documents on the judge's bench. The ledgers from Blackwood's office, letters between Blackwood and Thorne discussing removing obstacles, receipts for payments to Luther Crow, the evidence of conspiracy. This letter from Ezekiel Thorne to Blackwood says, and I quote, "Do whatever necessary to secure land. We do not ask questions about methods. That is not innocent third party, Your Honor. That is conspiracy." Morton objected. Those documents could be forged. How do we know this mountainman did not create them to support his case? Jacob turned to look at Morton directly. I do not lie, sir. I have lived by one code for 25 years. My word is my bond. Ask Crow chiefs. Ask Shoshone elders. Ask Ute traders. They will vouch for my character. Can your client say the same? Objection, Morton shouted. This is character assassination, not evidence. Overruled, Bass said quietly. I will allow it. Continue, Mr. McAllister. Jacob presented more evidence. Testimony from Luther Crow, sworn and witnessed, detailing every payment, every order, every crime. Crow had been thorough in his confession, holding nothing back. The mining company knew, Jacob said. They might not have ordered specific crimes, but they knew Blackwood was using illegal methods. They chose profit over morality. And now they want this court to reward them for it. Then Kaya stood to testify. She wore traditional Apache dress, her long black hair pulled back in the formal style reserved for important ceremonies. She spoke slowly, carefully, occasionally pausing to find the right English words. "Your Honor," she began, "my name is Kaya, daughter of Chief Two Rivers. This land has been Apache land for 8 generations. My great-great-great-grandmother is buried beneath the cottonwood tree by the spring. My grandfather performed the sunrise ceremony there that made him a man. My mother taught me to weave baskets beside that water. My husband died trying to protect our right to stay on this land." Her voice was steady, but emotion ran beneath it like current beneath ice. "The sacred spring's not just water. It is connection to our ancestors, to using the Creator, to everything that makes us Apache. When Colonel Blackwood tried to take this land, he was not just taking dirt and water. He was taking our history, our identity, our souls." She placed the rope-marked rattlesnake skin on the judge's bench. The burned fragments of her wickiup, physical evidence of attempted murder. "This mining company says they are innocent, but they paid $10,000 for land that was not for sale. They paid a corrupt official to steal what could not be bought. They knew. Maybe they did not know every detail, but they knew the land was being taken by force." Her eyes, fierce and proud, found Judge Bass. "You are white man, I am Apache. We are different peoples, but surely your law says murder is wrong, stealing is wrong. Does your law protect killers if they pay enough money? Does it reward men who profit from crimes they claim not to see?" The courtroom was absolutely silent. Then Kaya said the words that would be quoted in newspapers across the territory. "My husband died with honor, protecting children. He died fighting for what was right. I will not dishonor his memory by surrendering to men who hide behind papers and contracts and lies. If your law cannot see justice, then your law is broken." She sat down. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Morton stood for cross-examination, but he looked uncertain for the first time. "Miss, Kaya," he began, "you say this land is sacred, but under United States law, the federal government has the right to relocate Native Americans to designated reservations. Your presence on this land is technically illegal." "The law that says that," Kaya replied, "is the same law that broke every treaty ever made with my people, is the same law that killed my husband, is the same law that steals our children for boarding schools. You ask me to respect law that has never respected us?" Morton had no answer to that. Finally, Luther Crow testified. He sat in the witness chair, hands shaking, voice breaking. "I am guilty," Crow said. "I did terrible things for money. I placed the snake, burned the wickiup, terrorized a woman whose only crime was refusing to leave her home. I did it because I was in debt, because I was weak, because I chose money over morality." He looked directly at the mining company lawyers. But Ezekiel Thorne knew. He told Blackwood to accelerate the timeline when the first attempts failed. He knew we were using violence. He knew people were being hurt. He paid us through Blackwood. The mining company is not innocent. They paid for blood. They just did not want to see it spilled. Morton tried to discredit Crow, to suggest he was lying to reduce his own sentence. But Crow had receipts, had dates, had details that could only come from someone who was there. When all the testimony was finished, Judge Bass called a recess. He would deliver his verdict after lunch. Those 2 hours felt like 2 days. The community gathered on the courthouse steps. Apache elders, white settlers, Jacob and Ethan. Chaos stood slightly apart, staring at the distant mountains. Jacob approached her. "Whatever happens, you fought. You stood up. That matters. And if we lose, then we find another way. We always find another way." At 2 o'clock, the bailiff called them back inside. Judge Bass sat behind his bench, looking older than he had that morning. The weight of the decision showed on his face. "I have reviewed all evidence," he said. I have considered testimony. I have examined the law. This is my ruling." He looked directly at the mining company lawyers. The contract between Golden Peak Mining and Colonel Blackwood is void. It is void due to fraud and criminal conspiracy by both parties. Mr. Thorne's letter clearly shows the company was aware illegal methods were being employed. Ignorance of specific crimes does not constitute innocence when one willfully chooses not to look. Morton stood to object, but Bass silenced him with a look. Furthermore, Bass continued, while I recognize that federal Indian policy allows for relocation of Native Americans, in this specific case, the land in question was never legally transferred to federal control. It exists in a gray area of territorial law, and when gray areas exist, I tend to rule on the side of possession. Kaya has possessed this land. Her family has been buried there for generations. That creates a claim that supersedes a fraudulent contract. He turned to Kaya. The 160 acres remains yours, Miss Kaya. Furthermore, I am designating the sacred spring as a protected cultural site under the Territorial Heritage Act. No mining operations may occur within 1 mile of that spring. No attempts to relocate the Apache families currently residing there may be made without direct federal court order, which I suspect Washington will be reluctant to grant given the publicity this case has generated. The courtroom exploded. Apache elders stood, singing victory songs. White supporters applauded. The mining company lawyers sat in stunned silence. Bass banged his gavel. Order! I am not finished. The room quieted. Golden Peak Mining will pay $5,000 in restitution to Miss Kaya for damages and legal expenses. The company is furthermore barred from any mining operations in Arizona territory for 5 years pending federal investigation into their business practices. He looked at Ezekiel Thorne, who sat pale and shaking in the gallery. Mr. Thorne, you will face separate criminal trial for conspiracy to commit murder. Your bail is set at $10,000. Bass banged his gavel one final time. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, the celebration was spontaneous and genuine. Apache and White dancing together in the street, children running and shouting. Someone produced a fiddle, someone else had a drum. Kaya stood in the center of it all, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, but of relief, of victory, of justice finally, impossibly, won. Jacob approached her, and without a word, she embraced him. Not romantically, but as family embraces, as warriors who have fought together embrace. We did it, she said into his shoulder. Shishay, we did it. You did it, Jacob corrected. I just stood beside you. Ethan ran up, practically vibrating with excitement. Uncle Jacob, did you hear? We won. We actually won. I heard, boy, Jacob said, smiling. It was the first real smile anyone had seen on his face in weeks. Reverend Harding appeared from the crowd. Jacob, I knew you would find purpose again. I knew God was not finished with you. I am not sure it was God, Jacob replied, but I am grateful nonetheless. That evening, the growing community held a feast at the sacred spring. Roasted deer meat that Cocheta had hunted, acorn cakes that Kaya and the settler women had made together, wild berries and honey. It was simple food, but it tasted like victory. As the stars came out, as the fire burned low, a rider approached the camp. Captain William Shaw dismounted, holding an envelope. Jacob McAllister, he said formally, I have a letter for you. Jacob took the envelope. It bore the seal of the Department of the Interior, United States government. He opened it, read by firelight. His expression changed as he read. Surprise, then thoughtfulness. What does it say? Kaya asked. Jacob looked up. They want me to train new Indian agents. In Santa Fe, the Interior Department is reforming after the Blackwood scandal. They need men with experience, men who understand tribal cultures, men with integrity. They are offering $1,200 a year, 1-year term. That is good money, Ethan said. It is, Jacob agreed, but it means leaving here, leaving this community. Kaya smiled. You should go, Shishay. Your wisdom is needed beyond this valley. You can teach whites our ways, make more men like you. That is how our people survive in this changing world. But the community needs protection, Jacob protested. Needs someone who knows how to fight. We are strong now, Kia said. 8 families, warriors, allies. You gave us foundation. Now go, build something bigger. Naichi stepped forward. She speaks truth. Go, Ghost Walker. Teach white men not to fear what they do not understand. Teach them to see us as people. That is more valuable than any rifle. Jacob looked at Ethan. What about you, boy? You want to come to Santa Fe? Ethan's face lit up. Could I? Could I help teach them? You know Apache ways now. You know mountain man skills. You could translate, demonstrate, help them understand what I am trying to teach. Then yes, Ethan said without hesitation. I want to help make things better. Jacob nodded slowly. He looked at the community around him, at the wiki-ups and the log cabins standing side by side, at Apache children and white children playing together by firelight, at something that had seemed impossible just months ago. All right, he said, I will go for 1 year, train them properly, then come back here. This is my home now. Kaya performed a ceremony that night, a traveling blessing. She sprinkled corn pollen on both Jacob and Ethan. Naichi sang traveling songs. The community gave them gifts to carry. An eagle feather from Naiche, a woven bracelet from Kaya, dried venison from Ishtan, small tokens that meant everything. We name you formally now, Naichi said to Jacob. You are no longer Shishe, brother. You are Biji Yiskanene, strong man who returns. You will always have home here. The next morning, Jacob and Ethan prepared to leave. Their horses were packed. The community lined the path to say goodbye. Kaya walked Jacob to his horse. She handed him something, his Green River knife, wrapped in a piece of buckskin. I return this to you, she said. Keep it safe. When you come back, I will need it to cut wood for your house. Jacob smiled. You are assuming I am coming back. I know you are coming back. Mountain men keep their promises. That we do, Jacob agreed. He mounted his horse. Ethan did the same. They raised their hands in farewell, and the community sang traveling songs as they rode away. The year in Santa Fe changed the territory. Jacob trained 20 new Indian agents in the old mission building that served as the Department of Interior's regional headquarters. He taught them things no textbook contained. Rule 1, he told the class of young men, most of them fresh from Eastern colleges, never promise what you cannot deliver. Indians remember broken promises for generations. Your word must be absolute bond, or you are worthless. Rule 2, learn tribal languages, even just basic words. Hello, thank you, please, it shows respect. It shows you see them as people, not obstacles. Rule 3, sacred sites are non-negotiable. You do not bargain with a church. You do not negotiate with a cemetery. Same with sacred ground. Period. Rule 4, treaties work both ways. If you expect tribes to follow the rules, then the government must follow the rules too. No exceptions, no excuses. Some agents dismissed him, called him an old mountain man who did not understand modern policy. But others listened, really listened. One young agent named Thomas Reed stayed after class one day. Mr. McAllister, he said, the newspapers say Indians are savages, but you say different. Who is telling the truth? Jacob looked at the young man for a long moment. I have seen more savagery in white towns than in any Indian camp, he said finally. Crow shared their last food with me when I was starving. Shoshone pulled me from a blizzard and nursed me back to health. Ute mourned my wife as if she were their own blood. You tell me who is civilized. Reed nodded slowly. I will remember that, sir. Ethan served as teaching assistant, demonstrating Apache tracking techniques, teaching basic Apache phrases, explaining cultural practices that seemed strange to white minds, but made perfect sense once you understood them. The impact was measurable. Of the 20 agents Jacob trained, 15 went on to implement fair policies in their territories. Complaints against Indian agents dropped 40% in districts where his trainees served. Judge Bass sent a letter 6 months into the term. Jacob, your work is making a real difference. We are seeing fewer conflicts, fewer incidents of abuse. The Interior Department wants to expand the program. They want you to train agents for another year. But Jacob wrote back, I appreciate the offer, but I made a promise. 1 year, then I go home, and home is not Santa Fe. When Jacob and Ethan rode back into Kaya's community in the summer of 1877, they barely recognized the place. What had been 8 families was now 15. 60 people total, Apache and white settlers living together in a way that seemed impossible when they had left. There was a schoolhouse now, a proper log cabin structure, a community meeting hall, expanded gardens that fed everyone. The sacred spring had a stone marker placed by territorial surveyors, officially designating it as protected land. The entire community turned out to greet them. Kaya ran to meet Jacob, and he saw tears on her face. Shishe Yiskanene, she called. Strong man who returns. Welcome home. They embraced as family embraces, and Jacob felt something he had not felt since Springflower died. He felt like he belonged. That evening, they held a feast that lasted 7 days. Everyone contributed. Everyone participated. Apache songs and frontier ballads mixed in the night air. Children who had been toddlers when Jacob left were now old enough to hear the stories of the fight for Sacred Spring. On the third night, Ethan made an announcement. I have decided, he said to the assembled community, I am staying here, not going back east, not going to cities. I am going to build a proper school here, teach both Apache ways and white reading and writing and arithmetic. Children need both to survive in this changing world. Jacob felt pride swell in his chest. Your father would be proud, boy. You are building something that will last. I learned from you, Ethan replied. You said legacy is not what you take, it is what you leave behind. Kaya spoke then. We have been planning, Shishe, waiting for you to return. We want to build you a proper house. Log cabin, mountain man style, but big enough for you to live comfortably. The whole community will help. Apache and settlers together. Jacob looked at her, at Naichi, at Ishton and Cocheta, at Martha and her children, at everyone who had become family. I would be honored, he said quietly. They built the cabin over the next month. Everyone contributed labor. Apache and white, working side by side. The structure rose solid and strong, built to last generations. When it was finished, Naichi performed a house blessing ceremony. He burned sage, sang blessing songs, sprinkled corn pollen on the threshold. This house, Naichi said, stands on Apache land, built by Apache and white hands together. It is symbol of what we have created here. Different peoples, one community. This is the future, if we are brave enough to live it. That night, Jacob sat on the porch of his new home, looking out at the community, at the wickiups and log cabins, at the children playing together in the last light of day, at gardens that fed everyone regardless of race, at the sacred spring still flowing clear and cold. Kaya came and sat beside him. They did not speak for a long time, just sat together as old friends sit, comfortable in silence. Finally, Kaya spoke. You know what I think, Shishe? What? I think Goyawe sent you to me. I think Spring Flower sent you to us. I think the spirits knew what we needed before we knew ourselves. Jacob considered that. Maybe you are right. Maybe they knew I needed you as much as you needed me. What will you do now? Stay here? Go back to trapping? Stay here, Jacob said without hesitation. Help Ethan with the school. Help protect this community. Keep living proof that Apache and white can build something together. Good, Kaya said and smiled, because I am too old to train another stubborn mountainman. They both laughed. 19 years later, in 1895, an old man of 76 sat by a campfire surrounded by family. His great-nephew Ethan, now 34 and married to an Apache woman named Desba, sat beside him. 3 children, Ethan's sons and daughter, sat listening. The oldest boy, James, 9 years old, had just heard the full story of Sacred Spring for the first time. Grandpa Jacob, James said, you are a hero. You saved Miss Kaya and the whole community. Jacob shook his head. No, boy. Heroes are people who stand up when they are shared, when they have everything to lose. I was just an old mountain man who found purpose again. But you fought bad guys. You rescued people. Real heroism is not fighting, Jacob said. It is choosing right when wrong is easier. It is keeping your word when breaking it would benefit you. It is respecting people different from you. That is what makes a hero. Kia appeared from the darkness, now 48 years old, hair graying but still strong. She was the acknowledged matriarch of what had grown into a community of 90 people. And you taught us that white men can be brothers too, she said, sitting on Jacob's other side. You showed us not all white people are enemies. Because of you, Apache and white families live together here in peace. That is your legacy, Bidgie. Jacob took her hand and squeezed it gently. Our legacy. I could not have done anything without you teaching me, without your courage. Ethan spoke to his son. James, what did we learn from this morning? Learn this story. The boy thought carefully. That different people can work together? Deeper than that, Jacob said. Life taught me this. It does not matter if you are white, Apache, mountain man, or city boy. Does not matter if you trap beaver or weave baskets. What matters is this. Do you keep your word? Do you respect the land? Do you honor other people? That is the measure of a person. Kaya added, and do you leave the world better than you found it? That is the true test. The camera of memory pulls back slowly, showing the scene from above. A community of 90 people gathered around multiple fires, wiki-ups and log cabins standing together, gardens thriving, children of mixed heritage playing freely. The sacred spring still flowing, still protected, a symbol of what can be built when people choose understanding over fear. Text appears as if written in history. Jacob Grizzly Bear McAllister served as Indian agent trainer from 1876 to 1877, revolutionizing practices across 5 territories. He returned to what became known as Kaya's Haven and lived there until his death in 1898 at age 79. He was buried on a hill overlooking the sacred spring with full Apache honors. Kaya Chiricahua became a respected leader and mediator between Apache and white communities. The settlement she founded became a model for peaceful coexistence, surviving until Arizona statehood in 1912. She died in 1907 at age 58, having seen 3 generations of children grow up in the community she helped create. Ethan McAllister established the first bilingual school in Arizona Territory in 1878, teaching both Apache and English. His educational methods were adopted by the Bureau of Indian Affairs in 1895. He lived until 1930, teaching until his final year. Sacred Spring, officially renamed Kaya's Spring in 1880, remains protected federal land to this day. It was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1978, honoring the community that proved different peoples could live together in mutual respect. The last words are Jacob's voice, carried on the wind. Mountains taught me to be strong. Spring flower taught me to be humble. Crow taught me to be loyal. And Kaya, she taught me that strength means standing with others, not above them. That is the lesson I carry to my grave. That is the lesson I leave to those who come after. The screen fades to black on an image of the sacred spring, still flowing after all these years, reflecting stars. And somewhere in those stars, perhaps Spring Flower and Goyahweh look down and smile, knowing that the people they loved found each other and built something lasting from shared loss and shared hope.